But Democrats define illegals different than we do, right?
Right.
So when they say, well, illegals are not eligible, they're not allowed, they're not counting the people with temporary status. They're not counting people who are in process for whatever reason with the Fed. They're not counting the millions of DACA recipients in this nation. They don't call them illegal. For them, illegals are people who just haven't got, put on to something yet.
Well, first of all, we don't view the current bill as anything other than a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the healthcare of the American people.
It's at levels that you guys have already agreed to. A number of Democrats voted for this extension back in March. It's not adding or detracting anything. It's just continuing the levels of spending that currently exist.
Actually, it's not at levels that we agreed to. Democrats strongly oppose this legislation in the House because, in our view, it gut veterans' health care, gut funding for women, infants, and children programming, gut funding for affordable housing, and we know we have a housing crisis in this country. Housing costs are too high. Just to be clear, though, it's not changing current. It's not changing current levels. Nothing's getting cut. It's at levels that you may not like, but it's about extending levels as they currently exist. Fair? Right. We agree that current spending levels are unacceptable.
I want to unpack this because I want everyone watching to be able to understand what is actually going on here. ACA's eligibility standards require an individual to be a U.S. citizen or a lawfully present non-citizen, which can include asylum seekers, refugees, and those granted employment authorization. So the Biden administration had relaxed the criteria for various categories of immigration status, which allowed more foreign nationals who were previously considered unlawfully present to qualify for status that they may be eligible for ACA tax credits. And so this, and help me, ladies, if I'm explaining this correctly. So what they're doing is this CR is putting the big beautiful bill took all that away, and the Democrats want this CR to bring it back. Is that right?
Basically, they want illegals to be able to receive this Medicare or these funds, again, regardless of their status. But you also have to remember that illegals will receive Medicaid, if you will, by virtue of emergency care. And those women who are pregnant, even if they're illegals, they can qualify for some programs via Medicaid and all of these other subsidies and state, I forget what they call them, block grants, things like that. Keep in mind, regardless of the funding, I keep saying this, regardless of the funding, whether it's federal or state or they make a joint venture, it's taxpayer money. It's our money. I don't care what black pot it comes from, what kettle it comes from. It's taxpayer money. Call it what you want. It's taxpayer money, and they should not be getting it. This also goes into, not this particular bill, but the fact that pregnant women can get it if they're illegal just because they're pregnant and other criteria they may meet under the state part of the provisions. Keep in mind that this all feeds into this birthright citizenship, the anchor babies, things like that. This is why we need to don't necessarily isolate all of these bills and policy. Think of them as how they overlap with other policies and other bills or other laws that are being, reviewed at the Supreme Court. These things impact Americans primarily. First and foremost, they will impact us, and it needs to stop.
So, Nicole, I want to ask you because, we all agree that we don't believe illegal immigrants, non-citizens should get health care. But is that heartless? You know how the left is saying, is that a situation? The left is trying to push a narrative that health care is a right. And, if these people are here, whether legal or illegal, and they have some type of health issue, health situation, it's for the better good, or that they get health care. What are your thoughts there?
No, you want to know what's heartless? $900 a month premiums for insurance with a $10,000 deductible, and deductible applies to everything except for your annual wellness exam. Try that for a young person, a single person who's just trying to maintain their health, who may have a little asthma, a little high blood pressure, whatever it is, we're asking our newly employed youth to come up with that kind of money. So this illegal immigrant, this DACA person, this anchor baby, if you will, can be insured. It happens all of the time. It happens very much in healthcare. And what you see, like they do in the District of Columbia, they move people from one silo of money to another silo of money if the feds are looking at how many illegal people are collecting a certain amount of healthcare benefit. So they'll move young, they call them young children without healthcare, illegal children from CHIP over to a private state-run program still using federal dollars. It's a shell game of the highest order. These people aren't dumb. They've been shamming the government. They've been on the grift for a very, very long time. But as an American citizen, I'm going to tell you, me and my $1,200 a month insurance, $1,200 a month insurance. I had to use an EpiPen today, a $700 EpiPen. Prior to the ACA, the EpiPen was $40.
Wow.
Insurance premium was like $135. So you want to cry me a river? I would like to wipe my eyes with the hundreds of thousands of dollars that I've paid in healthcare coverage. And I work in healthcare. How about that? I work in healthcare. So this is a losing point when you're talking to the American people about saving able-bodied men and DACA recipients and other illegal people money on their health insurance. You've got to be kidding me. This is how disconnected they are. But here's an important point, KJ, that I wanted to point out. When we talk about illegal people and government benefits, especially healthcare, we should all know that USCIS, this is the people who vet people for green cards and temporary status and that kind of thing, does not check to see if you've been a drain on the United States taxpayer. They don't look for housing, food, or healthcare. They don't look at any of that when they're considering who you've been since you've been in our nation illegally. That has to change. I say, if you're here illegally and you've been a drain on the American public, baby, you don't get to stay. You need to go back to your home nation and work it out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you brought up a very good point, because a lot of people, we haven't really been haven't heard many people talking about Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, but that's at the root of this shutdown. So Democrats refused to pass a spending bill that didn't include extending enhanced ACA, which is the Obamacare subsidies. It's about these subsidies, which were first enacted during COVID. So back in 2021, as part of the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, they passed these subsidies. They extended it through 2025 by Biden's Inflation Reduction Act and eliminated income caps for subsidies and made them more generous. So taxpayers now have to pay permanent subsidies, which cost over $340 billion per year. So as you mentioned, a lot of this stuff has caused all this Obamacare has caused much of healthcare to go up. So what we have $1.6 million in higher income earners would lose subsidies completely, and millions more would see smaller subsidies and higher premiums. So Democrats want a permanent extension, arguing Republicans are taking away health care. But when in reality, it's these ACA mandates that raised premiums, especially, as you mentioned, for healthier people, up to 80% since 2014. I haven't heard people talk about ACA much anymore.
When ACA was enacted, costs went up. Within the next years, costs started going up. And they've been going up since. So again, to your point about compassion or being compassionate to illegals, let me tell you what is compassionate. If an illegal is here, if anybody's here and they get injured, they're injured on our highways, whatever, an accident, they automatically get emergency care to sustain themselves, to sustain their lives, to get them back at least to a baseline health, if you will. But that's compassion. Anybody would get that. So there's an American. We're paying for that, not just for Americans, for anybody who comes here on our dime, if you will. If they get hurt, they get a free, if you will, emergency care, and then ship their asses back home. That's what it should be. That's number one. Number two, these are just two stats that I found, and I think Texas is underrated. I think it was a USA.com reported that Texas pays $122 million for emergency care for illegals. I think that's grossly undercounted. I do. I think that must be just one hospital. But Florida's reported to have paid $666 million in care for illegals. Those are just two states. Don't. What about the whole country? The whole country is reported that we are paying $27 billion with a B dollars for illegal healthcare, for illegals to get healthcare in the United States. Well, if they're not Americans, they shouldn't be getting it, number one. If they're not here, like you said, legally, green card, on a work status, or whatever the case may be. And if they're on a work status, then they should be paying part of their healthcare, and the employer is paying some of it. Should be.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We have some super chatters here, folks. Thank you all so much. Your super chats go a long way in helping us stay online and put out this conservative content. We appreciate you. Kung Fu CJ says, I'm here. I'm driving, though. Thank you so much. Thanks,
CJ.
Laura with the $5 super chat says,
Hi,
ladies,
Laura.
I am confused because the Democrats say that the illegals are not eligible or allowed. And that is true. She's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're saying, but it's sort of a twist of the wording. So they are allowed. They are, when we're talking about refugees, asylum seekers, they are being given health care. Is that right, ladies?
Yeah, they
Without
are.
question.
And even people who are not refugees, if they're just here illegally, they can get health care. Again, it's a matter of whatever pot this money is coming from, and it may not be the full Medicare pot, because remember, Medicare is a combination of federal and state together. So if they say, oh, no, they might meet the state criteria and they might get the state pot, but that money is still partly from the federal. Again, it's all taxpayer money. This is why I keep saying we need full transparency of where our dollars go, real time, real expenses, whatever pot it's coming from. Again, it's all taxpayer money, but we need this. This is what we should have. Doge didn't go far enough, or it was stopped too soon. We need full transparency. If we have to turn in a damn income tax forms every goddamn year, I'm sorry for cursing, but this gets me vexed. This really gets me revved up. Then we should be getting that same report pretty much every month, if not every week, from how our government and our money is spending.
Yeah,
it's a ridiculous proposition, but Democrats define illegals different than we do, right? So when they say, well, illegals are not eligible, they're not allowed, they're not counting the people with temporary status. They're not counting people who are in process for whatever reason with the Fed. They're not counting the millions of DACA recipients in this nation. They don't call them illegal. For them, illegals are people who just haven't got, put on to something yet. For
just
us,
cross the border.
Exactly.
Right.
For us, illegals is anyone in this nation who is not a citizen. If you are not a citizen, you are illegal. Democrats will argue that to death. But when they say that, they're being absolutely disingenuous. They're not telling the truth. If they wanted to deal with the American public truthfully and say, hey, listen, we're a compassionate nation. We should be offering health care to these people. It's to our advantage that they're not here killing us with diseases from foreign countries and whatnot. Hence the return of polio. Let's do that, right? Remember polio way back in the day? It's making an ugly comeback. But when we talk about compassion in the United States, we as a nation spend billions of dollars giving money to other nations so that they can have better health care. Not through USAID, but from our federal government, compassionate donation to their nations. I think that's enough compassion, because when you show up here and you want to have a baby here and you want to do all of these things here in the United States, you bring your children here undocumented and we're taking care of them for the rest of their lives. The compassion has to stop somewhere. Where is the compassion for the people born under the stars and stripes? When does it get to be about us? Now, I'm not one of those people who say America first and America only, but I will tell you America first always. We should be taking care of the homeland first, foremost, and then we can worry about the rest of the world. But the way it's inverted now, it's almost like you're slapping them in the face if you tell them, well, as an American, I don't want to pay for healthcare for everybody. When you say that to a Democrat and you want to set them off, you want to have the neck wiggle and the finger go, tell them that you want Americans taken care of first. It burns their biscuits. It absolutely burns them up.
Terrible. It's terrible to say, to even for someone to be upset about that. We are in America. And another thing, and you brought up a good point, and I'm going to return to Laura's comment. Then, as you mentioned, look what Biden did when he let in tens of millions of people into the country, and many of them they say they were seeking asylum. Well, none of this stuff was checked. None of these things were checked back up on. They gave them this sort of asylum status when many of them were not. They did not fit the actual criteria of asylum seekers, but they were let in here anyway. And so many of these people are they weren't asylum seekers. They were just illegals.
Exactly.
Yep. Border jumpers.
Remember that as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.